All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. My name is Suzanne Grossman. I direct career services at the Marks School of Public and International Affairs, which is part of Baruch College in the CUNY system in New York City. I'm here with my colleague, our Assistant Director, Samantha Pardo. And we're very pleased to kick off our annual DC Virtual Trek, which we figured out has been 6 years, sixth annual, starting in 2020, fall 2020, where we're having a series of events in the month of October around public service careers with a focus on Washington, D.C. And I'm going to put in the chat our link tree, which lists all of the events. So we welcome everybody here to join us throughout the month, and I'll repeat that link at the end as well. And I want to thank my colleagues from the NASPA Employer Relations Committee who will be hosting some of the other events this semester and who are here today. Shout out to everybody and all the work we put in to bring these events to NASPA school students and alumni. So I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues at the Partnership for Public Service who are going to lead us through today's presentation on your call to serve. I'm going to hand it over now. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Suzanne. And hi, everyone. My name is Stephanie Sonkin. I'm joined by my colleague, Logan. I'll let him introduce himself in a moment. But we are from the Partnership for Public Service, and we're just going to be talking a little bit more about public service careers today. I am a program manager on our workforce programs team here at the partnership, and I will also let Logan now more fully introduce himself as I get slides up.
I think my audio cut out. Stephanie, did you kick it over to me? Awesome.
I
Well,
did.
yeah. Hi, everyone. My name's Logan Cole. I'm also a program manager with the Partnership for Public Service. At the organization, I work on a variety of things, whether that's internship and fellowship programs to expose folks to public service career fields, or working on more talent development projects and getting the inside scoop from federal agencies and state agencies on how they work and how their systems work and how they can best acquire the talent they need.
Thanks, Logan. So I will kick us off with our first couple of slides, and then Logan will take over from there. So this presentation is called What's Your Call to Serve? Navigating Your Public Service Career. And then we have a very brief agenda. So we have a little bit more information about the partnership and what we do, a quick Menti poll for all of you to get a little bit more engaged. We'll talk about federal hiring and then the Office of Personnel Management's Merit Hiring Plan, which launched this year, some career pathways and pivots, building skills outside of government, and I should clarify that's federal government, some additional fellowship opportunities, and then we'll close with some Q&A. So to get us started, if you've never heard of us before, the Partnership for Public Service, we are a nonpartisan nonprofit organization that is building a better government and a stronger democracy. We are based in Washington, D.C., and we've been around since 2001. We like to say that we are not the federal government, but we are like the federal government's best friend because we work with a lot of federal agencies. Unfortunately, not necessarily during a shutdown, as you might be aware, but normally we do work with a lot of federal government agencies and employees providing professional and leadership development. But we have also opened up our aperture this year to include state and local government. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that today. Logan is tangentially now related to the team that I sit on, the Call to Serve Network team. We are the team on the partnership that sits in the middle between government agencies and the higher education and student community. And our goal is to promote public service to the next generation of potential public servants. So we will move forward. And we're going to start with a Menti poll. So hopefully you're all familiar with Menti. So if you go to menti.com, or you can scan the QR code with your phone here, and then you can just enter the code 31397753. I'll give folks a couple of moments to join the Menti poll, and then we'll have some interactive questions for you. Give it a couple more seconds. I see everyone's joining in. Once we hit around 55 people, then I'll move forward to the next slide. All right, we're just about there, so we'll move to our next slide. Our first question for you, where are you joining us from today? So this could be the school that you go to or where you are physically sitting right now. Just want to know where you all are zooming in from. And do your best on a small screen to hit where on the map you are from. All right, seeing a lot of East Coast, especially New England and New York area. Seeing some West Coast as well. And middle of the country. Awesome, thank you. Awesome. All right, so our next question for you is, I am most interested in finding internships, fellowships, entry-level jobs, mid-career jobs, or something else. And this will help us talk a little bit more about the opportunities in navigating government hiring. All right, seeing a lot of desire for entry-level jobs, so we will talk about that for sure. All right, seeing some numbers still trickling in. I'll give it a few more seconds. All right, awesome. And then our final question for you all. Which public service career pathways are you most interested in? And this is a multi-select, so select all that apply. So we have federal government, state government, local government, nonprofits and non-governmental organizations or NGOs, academia, think tanks, research, private sector, or something else. All right, federal government is a strong one. And now it's a race between nonprofits and state government. Going to give it a few more seconds. All right. So we'll continue moving forward. Thanks so much for engaging with us. This just gives us a little bit more background into what you all are interested in. So now we'll talk a little bit more about federal hiring and federal hiring resources. And for that, I'm going to turn it over to Logan.
Yeah, hi everyone. And then as I saw on the last slide here, so for those of you who selected the that you're interested in the federal government, this next section is definitely for you. But if you did not select that, or maybe you have multiple interests, you might learn a few things as well. Federal hiring is unique, and the federal government is broad and vast. But as we walk through the federal hiring resources, we'll also share other resources as well. So if you're interested in a career in public service, no matter where you're at in that brief survey at the beginning, you are in the right spot. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide and talk more about the federal government. So often a question we get is, what is the federal civil service? And the best way to describe the civil service is we're focusing on the executive branch. So as you might be familiar, there's three branches of government. We have the legislative branch, that's where Congress sits, the executive branch, where all these federal agencies sit and why we're here, as well as the judicial branch, where the Supreme Court is, and the district courts and all the other court systems of the U.S. And so when we talk about the federal service, we are specifically focusing on executive branch agencies. For example, the United States Department of Agriculture, the Department of Interior, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, Health and Human Services, the Department of Education. Those are the organizations that we're focusing on. And overall, there are 2.2 million federal civilian employees and 15 executive departments and over 400 plus federal agencies. Now, what I'll note is that there are 15 executive cabinet departments, but there are over 400 agencies. And so as you're looking for opportunities, there are roles, positions, and all types of fields doing all types of different related to all types of different missions. So no matter what your area of interest is, you can take your skills and apply them to a role in public service. And so there's a lot of agencies. And so I encourage you today, as you listen to this presentation, think about what agencies are interesting to you, what stands out, what type of work do you want to be doing, and that can set you up to then search for positions that make sense for you, or you can always reach out to us at the partnership and we can help point you to some other resources. So let's go to the next slide. So there's already been a great question in the chat asking a little bit more about, are are positions in the federal government just in Washington, D.C.? And the answer is no. There are positions all over the world. But if we'll focus in on this map here, as of March 2025, there are about 2.2 million civil servants in government, and these are the folks who are in non-political positions, who are in agencies, administration across administration. They're there full time. They do not change when the leadership of the country changes. These folks are there day in and day out. And over 80% of those positions are located outside of the DC area. So I saw some folks share different geographic locations that they're tuning in from today. The good news is that if that's your home community or where you want to build your career, you can potentially do that with the federal government in that area. So as you can see on this map, just to point out a few spots in California, there are over 180,000 federal employees. But even let's look at Indiana, for example. There's over 26,000 federal employees. That's a lot of positions. So no matter where you're at, there's an opportunity for you to do meaningful work with the federal government. What I'll add to that is for those of you who might be interested in careers globally, you might enjoy traveling, you might have always wanted to live in another country, you can work for the United States government as a civil servant abroad. So there are about 30,000 federal employees who work abroad, and those roles aren't just limited to international affairs. I know a lot of folks here are interested in public administration, public policy type positions. Those type of roles exist across the world as well. So I think the key takeaway is that there are opportunities everywhere, and that even if you don't have a desire to work in Washington, D.C., you can consider a career in public service at the federal level. So let's keep moving along here. Now, there's a lot that exists when it comes to federal hiring, and so we've developed a little bit of a cheat sheet to help you with that. So there are positions everywhere, but then you might be asking, okay, great, there's a position for me, but where do I go to apply? How do I build an application? What do I do next? I want to point you to our resource, gogovernment.org. It really is our one-stop shop for all things related to federal hiring. Here you can find a whole variety of resources to support you in your career search. So in the next couple slides, I'll highlight a couple of those resources, but encourage you to check out gogovernment.org after this presentation to begin reviewing these materials and finding what's relevant for you. So let's go to the next slide. What I'd like to point out today are our career guides. I think the Go Government career guides are some of the best resources on gogovernment.org. The purpose of the career guides is to help guide you in your career search. As I mentioned, there are positions all over the world where you can work for the federal government. And you might be wondering, where do I begin? How do I begin to bucket my experiences, or what positions should I even look for? And I think the career guides are a great tool to do that. So for this group, I know, again, public administration is a key interest here. So I recommend checking out the Administration and Program Management Guide. There you'll find some examples of pay ranges, different sample job descriptions and job titles, and that can be helpful. They aren't the only things that are available, but they can sort of be some clues and stepping stones to helping you figure out what should you be looking for on USA Jobs, which we'll also talk about a little bit more in a bit. However, I will say that you aren't limited to just these career guides. So there are all types of careers available in government, and I encourage you to explore all of your interests. But I think a great place to start is starting by the one that most connects to your major. For example, I studied public administration. So for me, I would check out the administration and program management. And then I would also check out maybe the social sciences. And as I've grown in my career, I've developed an interest in data, or I've seen data be important. So I might check out data too. So I encourage you to check out those as starting places. And then those resources there can help you understand, what position or what agencies have jobs in your career field, and then what are some of those sample position descriptions to check out. You can scan the QR code to find this page, but gogovernment.org is the website. Go on to the next slide here. One of the other resources on gogovernment.org is our Federal Internship Finder. This tool is helpful in identifying internships, research opportunities, and fellowships. So I know a few of you were interested in exploring these opportunities as we took our survey together. Here on the Federal Internship Finder, you can sort and find positions through a variety of filters by career guide. So I just talked about that, check out the Administration and Program Management career guide. You can filter for those types of roles based on the career guides on the Federal Internship Finder. You can also sort for paid internships and positions that are at the graduate level as well. You can filter for other things like location, full or part-time. When is their primary application season, depending on whether or not you want to apply for something in the fall or the spring or summer, whatever works best for you. And so here are a few examples on screen. So when you sort for that, you'll get your results, and you'll see that on the screen, our screenshot here, we're looking for graduate fellowships, and you can see some of the relevant fellowship positions that are available. And then when you go to learn more, it'll take you directly to that website. So this is essentially a database that collects all the information, but then when you click learn more, it'll take you to the program website where you'll find more information on the specifics of the application package and any other information you might need. But this is meant to help simplify your research because we know there's a lot out there. So this resource brings it all to one spot. So when you're interested in searching for potential federal internship opportunities, you can use this as a reference point to form your research along the way. You can scan the QR code to learn more, but again, this is also found on gogovernment.org. And then last but not least, usajobs.gov is one of the biggest pieces of the federal hiring process. And so I talked about some of the tools and resources available using the career guides, looking at the sample positions, doing some research on agencies that you might be interested in. And once you do that, you're going to want to go over to USA Jobs. And before we talk more about USA Jobs and the federal hiring process, by either a comment in the chat or a reaction, how many of you have a USA Jobs profile? See a couple reactions here. All right. So I see quite a few folks are already interested and have a USA Jobs profile, which is excellent. If you do not, that's okay. Maybe a stepping stone after today's conversation is creating a profile. What I'll note is that 95% of jobs in the federal civil service will be found through USA Jobs. Jump over to the next slide. So USA Jobs includes a variety of portals and resources for you as a job seeker. One of those is the internship portal. The federal internship portal is a part of the broader architecture of USA Jobs, but the internship portal focuses on internships, just focuses on internships. Here, you can use a variety of filters, the search bar, and tools to narrow down internships and find what might be of interest to you. What I'll note is that positions on these websites vary over the course of the year. So sometimes if agencies aren't in a season of hiring, you might only see a few results on the screen, or certain times a year, you may see hundreds of positions. I think this is just something to include as you're thinking about the next steps for your career. Put this on your to-do list, check in. Maybe is it once a week, once every other week, and see what's available on the internship portal. And right now, given that we're in the midst of a government shutdown, some of these resources may not be updated as regularly. So if you go to the site today and you don't see anything on there, please don't be discouraged. It might just be that things are on pause for the moment, but when they resume, there'll be positions back and definitely things for you to apply for. And then the other portal I'll point out is the recent graduate portal. So the internship portal is great if you're looking for an internship, whether you're an undergraduate student, a graduate student, or you're looking just to test out a career path for a short period of time. That could be the path for you. Now, as you prepare for graduation and launch into your entry-level position, which many of you indicated interest in, the recent graduate portal is going to be for you. The recent graduate portal focuses or works the same way as the internship portal does, but instead focuses on positions for recent graduates. This is where most of your entry-level positions are going to be. However, I'll note that not all entry-level positions are here. So still use USA Jobs, the home page, that main page we talked about, but also consider the recent graduate portal. The reason why I mentioned that you should consider both is because this is going to give you the best view of the variety of opportunities available. So you could just use the recent graduate portal if you like, but I think using both is a great way to make sure you're not missing any opportunities, especially as you're job searching and planning your next steps. The portal works similar to all the other features of USA Jobs, where you can sort by career field, you can sort by agency, you can also sort by location. So no matter what your area of interest might be or where you might be located, you can sort based on your preferences and find opportunities relevant to you. And then last but not least, I'll talk a little bit more about some of the specifics of USA Jobs in these portals that are helpful to make it easier. These systems host hundreds of jobs, sometimes thousands, and it can be overwhelming to sort through. And I think anytime we can make it easier to find opportunities, the better off we'll be, because there's a lot to consider when it comes to a job search and applying to positions. And so on USA Jobs, one of the best ways to narrow down your search is by using the hiring paths filter. On the right side of the screen, you'll see a screenshot from USA Jobs. What I recommend doing is going through those filters there and selecting which filters apply to you, and then that'll help narrow down and provide position results based on those filters. As we talked about, as I talked about, the internship portal and the recent graduate portal exist, but you can also filter for positions by selecting students and recent graduates. The screenshot here has a red circle around it, but there are also a list of other identities you can select. So if you're a veteran considering your next steps into public service, you can filter for jobs that are specifically open for you. Or if you're a military spouse, or if you're a person with disabilities applying, there are several different filters available that might provide unique opportunities for you to enter into federal service. And so consider what might make sense for you as you go through your job search, but that's an important thing to consider. I'll also point out some common language you might see. Often USA Jobs can have some clunky job descriptions and it can be a little hard to read. And so I want to simplify that for you a little bit. If you're a graduate student looking for an entry-level position or even a internship position, you're going to want to look for roles that are labeled GS7 to GS9. This is specifically for graduate students or people looking for entry-level jobs with a graduate degree. As you look through these jobs, that's going to help you figure out what makes the most sense to you, because oftentimes the titles may not reveal what career level it is. So look for the GS number 2. All GS numbers are on every single job description. And so again, look at that GS7 to 9 level if you're a graduate student looking for either an internship or an entry-level opportunity. I will also note that on positions, you may see language that says conversion eligible and not to exceed. And what that means is if you're applying to an internship, it might say it's conversion eligible. And what that means is when you complete the internship, you may be eligible to convert to a full-time position. So as we think about all the different pathways into government, that could be one way in for you. Or you might also see internship positions that say not to exceed. And it may mean like the internship position could be initially 3 months long, and maybe you would extend a semester and it would say NTE or not to exceed 6 months, meaning you can participate in the internship, but it won't exceed past the number of months when you apply. So keep an eye out for those things in the job description and job posting within the USA Jobs portal. It's just going to give you insight into what you're applying to, and there's a mix of experiences available on the platform. And then for recent graduates, that's defined as anyone who is within 2 years post-graduation. So as you're applying for jobs, maybe you don't want to apply for a position in the federal government today. Well, after you graduate, you're considered a recent graduate for up to 2 years post-graduation. So just keep that in mind as you're searching for positions, and know that like those positions marked recent graduate, you're eligible for up to 2 years. And then for veterans, it's 6 years. We've talked about some different pathways into government, but now I want to talk specifically about the Pathways program. So I'll rephrase what I said. We talked about different opportunities and portals to use to enter government, but now we're going to talk about the Pathways program. The Pathways program is a formal program provided by the federal government to create a pathway for you to gain entry-level experience or an internship with the federal government. So the formal description is that the Pathways program offers possible conversion into a full-time federal service for students and recent graduates through federal internships or full-time jobs. And as you filter for these opportunities, you might see the title Pathways Internship. And so a Pathways Internship is described or is set aside for any current high school, college, graduate, or advanced degree student with paid opportunities to work in federal agencies. So the word internship is very broad in government. Sometimes in other industries, which we'll talk about, you might see the word fellowship or other things. In government, they often use the word internship, like pathways internship, to also talk about opportunities for college graduates or advanced degree candidates. And then the Pathways Recent Graduates Program, again, is for recent graduates, and it's a 1 to 2 year developmental program designed for individuals who have received an undergraduate, graduate, or advanced degree from a qualifying educational institution or program. And then candidates must apply within 2 years of receiving their degree, just like this is how the federal government defines a recent graduate. And then for veterans, that's 6 years, just like the other hiring pathways. And then I talked about the job series codes as a part of the career guides. And so you can go to gogov.org and check out some of the program administration job series codes. This is another way to narrow down your search. So you've got filters in USA Jobs, and you can also use these codes. For example, if you go to gogov.org, check out the Program Administration Career Guide, you can see a list of popular positions for those with that skill set or academic background. And in this example here, we have the code 0340, which is for program management positions. So if you're interested in program management or public administration, you can use that code and type that into the search bar of USA Jobs, and it will narrow it down to positions in program management. So again, you can use filters to sort by career level, location, or even job specialty. And those job series codes can again be found in gogov.org. And it's one way to narrow down your search and help simplify the process of finding opportunities in USA Jobs. And so here I'll just quickly point out some job series codes for public administration and policy majors. So some of the career guides we talked about earlier, these are their corresponding job series codes. So 0100 is for social science positions. So if you're interested in for foreign affairs, workforce development, the social sciences, economics, that might be the job series code for you. And then 0300 is one based in management and administrative services. So think about your program managers, administrative officers, management and program analyst positions. Many of those will be found within that job series code. Now I'll turn it over to Stephanie to talk more about the merit hiring plan. If you have questions, please feel free to add them in the chat. I'm happy to respond as we go along, and I can also answer questions at the end as well.
Thanks, Logan. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit more about the merit hiring plan, which I mentioned in our introduction, was introduced this year by the Office of Personnel Management. And if you hear me say OPM, that is what that means. So a little bit more about the merit hiring plan. This launched at the end of May of this year. And basically it is a plan set in motion by Executive Order 14170 to effectively overhaul federal hiring process. One of the major things that you might hear about federal hiring is that it's clunky, it's really slow, it's really confusing. And this is something that the administration has been working on, and actually there are some beneficial not consequences, but results coming out of this merit hiring plan that could help entry-level folks like yourselves. And there is a really strong emphasis on skills-based and competency-based hiring, whereas before maybe there wasn't as much of a focus on that and other types of experiences and skills were prioritized, but now there are changes coming. I do want to note that we are still under a hiring freeze except for certain fields, mainly national security and law enforcement. So you'll still see some jobs open on USA Jobs, but at the moment there is still the full hiring freeze. And we are monitoring to figure out, when that hiring freeze might be lifted, but we are still waiting. So some key updates from the merit hiring plan. The first is a really big one. It limits resume length to 2 pages and prohibits the long form federal resume. So if you're familiar with the federal resume system, you'll know that originally and historically, federal resumes are long. For an entry-level person, that would be 2 to 5 pages minimum. So now there is a cap on how long your resume can be. And I'll have another slide on this in a moment. And the next updates is that it adds new essay questions and eliminates the use of self-assessments. So if you've ever put forth a job application or an internship application through USA Jobs, you may have seen this self-assessment questionnaire where based on the job or internship you are applying to, it asks you to rank your skills and abilities based on that job, and it's entirely self-professed. So those are now going to be phased out in favor of essay questions, and I'll cover those in a slide coming up. And also, it sets the goal of reducing time to hire to 80 days. So as of the end of last year, OPM's latest data told us that the time to hire roughly hung around 101 days from application submission to full-time onboarding of a new employee. So that was just over 3 months long. So they are trying to get that number down to just under 3 months, which is very exciting. All right, federal resumes. So this is actually very recently implemented. So September 27th, so that was last week, I think. So now all resumes used for federal internship and job applications cannot be longer than 2 pages. And USA Jobs does have some technical functionalities where they will limit you. And I'll talk about that in conjunction with the resume builder in a moment. So required elements of new federal resumes are very much aligned with private sector resumes. So you'll still include your contact information, all of your education information, and you can put in some coursework that you've also been working on, your GPA. Work and volunteer experience. So within the federal resume system, there is no differentiation between paid work and volunteer experience. So you can lump those together as long as you have that experience, put that on your resume with those bullet points that are commonly seen in private sector resumes. You'll also want to include your start and end dates and also hours worked per week.
Under my
Can we
sink?
mute folks, please? Thank you so much. And I'll go back. Give me 1 second. All right, here we go. And we're back. So you'll want to include your start and end dates and hours worked per week. So these are very important elements of a federal resume because depending on how many hours worked per week and your start and end dates, an HR specialist will effectively calculate the total number of, years of experience you might have, and that'll go into the requirement for whatever job or internship you are applying to. So let's say a job you're looking at requires 2 years of experience. They'll be able to calculate that based on your federal resume. So definitely keep that in mind. And then you'll want to ensure that you include all recent but also relevant experience. So if you want to omit something from your volunteer or work experience that doesn't necessarily apply to the job, that's totally fine. If you still want to include it, but include fewer bullet points, that is also fine. But just make sure that you are including any experience that could be relevant to the job or internship you're applying to. Our next tip is to use the USA Jobs Resume Builder tool to ensure you include all required information in your resume. So this is the best way to make sure that you are including exactly what the hiring managers and human resources folks want you to include. So definitely take a look at that and feel free to build your resume. There is also a way to preview your resume to make sure it does not go over 2 pages. And if it does, you'll get a very big red sign saying you are over 2 pages, reduce this, otherwise you will not be able to apply to a job. We also recommend that you double check those sections, double check sections for some additional requirements on the job announcement. So definitely take a look at required documents, how you'll be evaluated and how to apply. Sometimes these sections have specific requirements of what they want to see in your federal resume. So this could be special certifications or specific languages that they want to see. So definitely check those out. And then make your resume searchable on USA Jobs so recruiters can find you. Based on a webinar that I attended from OPM last week, they are recommending that you choose one and only one resume to make searchable. That'll be searchable for 18 months. And then you can either choose to change that resume that you want to be searchable, but they are anticipating that recruiters might be reaching out just by searchable resumes. Some additional tips with federal resumes, and again, these are effectively what you would do for a private sector resume, but it doesn't hurt to just go over this again. So tailor the federal resume to the job announcement as best as you can, but you will not be necessarily including so many bullet points or excessive details, but make sure that you are mirroring their language. Numbers impress hiring managers, and you're going to market skills and achievements. So again, anything that you would like to show a hiring manager or an HR specialist, that would be great. And spelling and grammar matter, be concise and clear, make sure it is readable to both like a subject matter expert or the hiring manager in that field, but then also the HR specialist so they know that your experience applies. And ultimately, the resume is your application. So I'll go over the new essay questions in a moment, but for the most part, most job and internships available on USA Jobs do not require a cover letter or a personal statement. So really put all of your effort into your federal resume. So there is now new essay questions. I'm not going to call it a requirement because these are actually optional. So under the merit hiring plan, some job announcements, not all, may feature 4 short essay questions. So the first is, how has your commitment to the Constitution and the founding principles of the United States inspired you to pursue this role within the federal government? The second is, in this role, how would you use your skills and experience to improve government efficiency and effectiveness? 3, how would you help advance the president's executive orders and policy priorities in this role? And 4, how has a strong work ethic contributed to your professional, academic, or personal achievements? So according to OPM, answering these questions are optional. You cannot be marked ineligible for a job or an internship if you do not answer these. But because they're so new, we're still monitoring trends on, how best to maybe craft a response to these essay questions, but just know that there is a word limit of somewhere around 250 to 300 words. So these are still some short essay questions. And again, these essay questions replace that self-assessment questionnaire. So make sure that you double check to see if these essay questions are on your application package, but again, they're optional. All right, so I am now going to turn it back to Logan to talk a little bit more about pathways and pivots in public service careers, so venturing a little bit more outside of federal government. So back over to Logan.
Hi, everyone. We're going to talk more about career pathways and pivots, but before we do that, I saw a great question in the chat that says, I'm seeing many jobs say permanent federal employee. What does this mean? And that means that position is only open for current federal employees. And so folks applying to those, so if you're going to USA Jobs right now and searching for opportunities, want to note that we are in the midst of a government shutdown and therefore a hiring freeze. So you may not see the regular advertisement of internships or recent graduate positions right now. And that hopefully that will be restored soon. But I think that ties in really well to considering career pathways and pivots. So many of you talked about being interested in working with the federal government, but also indicated that you either have other interests in public service or are interested in a variety of things. And so over the next few slides, we'll talk about opportunities to explore other paths in public service. And then right now, for example, when there may not be positions readily available on USA Jobs because of a shutdown, you might consider other pathways and then pivot to the federal government later. So let's talk about some of these opportunities that exist. So there are a variety of public service pathways. For example, I work in a public service, an alternative public service pathway. Personally, I'm very passionate about government and public service, and I've been able to find unique opportunities at the Partnership for Public Service. So even Stephanie and I are examples of ways that you can remain connected to public service through other avenues. And so to highlight a few, we've talked about the federal government, but let's not forget about the wonderful opportunities in state and local government as well. All across the country, there are state and local governments who need bright, talented employees. And so that is another pathway that can be really rewarding. And eventually you can switch between government levels as well. For example, there are government employees who spend part of their career in local government, then pivot to federal or go to the state level. There's lots of ways you can use their transferable skills to pivot later, but state and local government is also a great place to be. The private sector. Many of you, if you're interested in putting your program, your public administration skills to use, there are lots of great roles in the private sector, whether that's contracting, consulting, lobbying, or technology services. Many of the organizations, there are many private sector organizations whose core job is to support the public sector. So whether that's helping deliver on policy priorities or developing tools and systems that help government work, there's opportunities to do that in the private sector. There's also lots of opportunities at nonprofit organizations or non-governmental organizations, and then plenty of positions in higher education administration, think tanks, and research. So all of these pathways can provide you with transferable skills. So if you're set on the federal government now and you may not be able to find a way in, these are great stepping stones to then pivot later, or maybe you want to try out the federal government and then decide, that's not for me, but I'm still passionate about public service. These are some other avenues you might consider. So let's go to the next slide. Here are just a few examples of some different state and local government pathways. Here I recommend checking out if no matter where you live, your state likely has a career page for their state government. And I think one of the best ways to search, I see here, Louisiana jobs. It's right in front of me on screen. You can type in state government jobs and Louisiana, and oftentimes it'll come up with their hiring portal. And it's, in each state is a little bit different. So what we told you about earlier was for federal jobs, but each individual state has specific guidance, and that will be listed there on their website. But any of the states across the country are going to have their own hiring portals as well. And the same thing for different cities. So if you're interested in working in New York City, for example, or you're interested in working in Los Angeles or Chicago, or maybe even a smaller town, check their website because they feature employment opportunities there too. And so here are just a couple places to search. So as I mentioned, the state government websites, but consider checking out governmentjobs.org, careeronestop.org, and that's a state job bank with lots of different state level positions, governmentresource.com for local government. And then there's lots of other ways to find it. I recommend getting on LinkedIn too if you don't have a LinkedIn profile. Often there are positions there for state and local government, and you might see postings in your area. And so a couple of examples. So there are lots, just like the federal government, there are lots of positions available in state and local government. And so here's a couple of examples. If you're interested in working with using your writing skills, finance skills, analytical skills, maybe grants compliance manager might be a great position for you. There's a city manager position. So if you're thinking about systems and structures, how a city works and implementing policy, those might be positions or offices of interest to you. The county labor relations chief. So if you're interested in organizations and how they operate, helping develop others, helping others grow and learn, implementing policies within an organization, that could be an interesting position. Then there's also the enlisted promotions manager at the Virginia Department of Military Affairs. So these are just a few samples, but you can see, just like the federal government, lots of opportunity and lots of different career paths to use your skills. As I mentioned, nonprofits and NGOs are also a great place. On the left side of the screen, you'll see where to search. I'll just name a couple. Checking out the National Council of Nonprofits can be a great place to start, just to see the variety of different types of organizations that might exist. Or even going to ngojobboard.org. You can check out some organizations there to help inform your search. And again, I'll just point out a couple sample roles here, but those positions might be titled Director of Education, like it is at the Georgia Historical Society. Or you might see roles like Outreach and Engagement Coordinator at the STEM Institute of Manhattan. So these different types of positions, again, require a lot of the same skills you might apply to the federal government, but you can use them in other ways too. So if you're passionate about public service and want to put your public administration and public policy skills to good use, there are lots of positions available for you. So let's go to the next slide. I think we'll talk more about the not the private sector yet, but academia, think tanks, and research. So again, if you're interested in education or think tank or are doing policy research, this could be the area for you. So a couple places you might consider searching is the Higher Education Recruitment Consortium, the Higher Ed Jobs. But you can also scan the QR codes here that have the University of Pennsylvania's list of public policy think tanks, and Harvard has a list as well. This will help point you in the right direction, specifically if you're interested in policy research or managing research projects. These could be a great tools to consider. And then some sample roles in organizations. You might look for titles such as research assistant, director of government affairs, or even manager of programming and engagement. So I recommend checking out these organizations if they're of interest to you. And again, just like government, these other industries, you can apply those same skills. And last but not least, I want to mention the private sector as well. So again, I mentioned the LinkedIn profile for state and local government. That definitely applies for the private sector as well. So as you look for private sector positions, definitely check out Indeed and any other public sector consulting firm's website. They often have very robust job sites with lots of position offerings all over the world. So that's another option to consider. And some common Position titles for those roles could be strategy officer, and that's at the Gates Foundation. So if you're interested in philanthropy and helping distribute money to nonprofits or other causes, strategy officer might be a position you're interested in. If you're interested in consulting and working with a variety of government organizations and bringing your expertise to a number of places, maybe a government and public services business risk analyst could be a position that's interesting to you, or even something titled project coordinator. Many consulting firms need good program managers and administrators to manage grants, to manage complex projects, or even to work across federal agencies or multiple levels of government. So if you're interested in public service, again, I think the key takeaway is that there are positions in several avenues. So if there's not positions that open for you right now in the federal government, or maybe you're not sure if the federal government is for you, there are other pathways to consider: state and local government, the private sector, the nonprofit sector. There are lots of opportunities to do meaningful work and put your public service skills to good use. And so now I'll turn it back over to Stephanie to talk a little bit more about building transferable skills outside of government.
Thanks, Logan. I see that we are coming up on time, so I don't want to take too much longer because I do want to leave room for Q&A. But a lot of questions our team has been getting from students specifically is, okay, but what specific skills in public service would I need, even if I can't work in federal government, but want to someday? So on this slide and the next slide, we have a couple of key skills that we have seen time and time again that might be helpful in federal government. This is not the be-all, end-all of public service focused skills, but this could just give you a better idea of what you could be working on and types of experiences that you can be getting in jobs and internships before eventually landing a federal role down the line. So we have some budget management. So again, budgets and grants management, very, very important. Marketing and social media. Every public service organization has some kind of marketing or social media presence, so that will also always be needed. Data collection and analysis. This could also include AI. AI is becoming very, very big, not just in the tech world, but also in regular software platforms like HR platforms that you might be using at a future job someday. Foreign language skills. I cannot tell you how many state and local government opportunities I've seen over the last couple of years that require program managers or grants managers to be bilingual. And this could be any language, but it just depends on the locality and what population you're serving. But again, if you have those foreign language skills, definitely, think about how you can use them. And then on the next slide as well, give me 1 second. So we have policy analysis. That's always going to be important, especially for you folks in public administration and public policy. Project management, public speaking. I have not honed my public speaking as much as I have in this role. I'm sure Logan can attest to that with the number of presentations that we give consistently, research and writing. So again, think about ways that you can hone these skills, especially for particular audiences when it comes to writing and research and public speaking. But this is just to give you something to chew on as you're thinking through the next steps in your career. All right, and very quickly, some upcoming fellowship opportunities. So I do want to plug the partnerships, Rosenthal Fellowship in International Relations. I think I saw some folks who might be focused on international affairs in some form or fashion, but this can also be open to folks in public administration or public policy with any type of concentration in international relations or international studies. But this application is currently open. It is open to graduate students studying some form of international affairs in their program. And it is an opportunity to intern with federal, state, or local government for summer 2026. This is going to be a 10 to 12-week full-time summer internship with a stipend of at least $5,000. Through this program, our team provides professional development sessions throughout the summer, including an orientation, plus at least 3 to 5 different workshops on public service related topics throughout the summer. One caveat is that you must be a U.S. citizen or hold dual citizenship with the U.S. As you may have already discovered, many federal roles especially are limited to U.S. citizens. So we just want to make sure that the path is as easy as possible for folks in this program to land an internship. And applications are due Friday, December 5th at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. If you want to use this QR code over here, I can also plug in the direct link in the chat once I stop sharing my screen. But if this is of interest to you, definitely check it out. It is live on our website right now. And I'll end on this. So again, we can't give you a full list of all fellowship opportunities in federal, state, local, nonprofits. We're going to be here all day. But if you're interested, George Washington University's Trachtenberg School has put together a fantastic list of fellowships available in the public service and international relations space. So definitely check that out. You can scan that QR code for that list. And I can also plug that in the chat in a moment. So with that, I know we still have a couple of minutes left for Q&A, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Logan and I are happy to take your questions.
Stephanie, I saw one question in the chat while you were presenting that had mentioned just asked about the essay questions in terms of applying to federal jobs. I just want to emphasize that for those positions, if you're applying, the essays are optional. And as you're performing your career search, I know that some of the questions there, depending, you may not agree with the questions or may not think they're right. Like as you're doing your career search in general, I recommend making decisions based on your values and what's important to you. Just because a lot like private organizations might do the same thing often. So as you're doing your career search, definitely think about what's important to you and apply to organizations that align with who you are and who you want to be as a professional. So if you don't feel comfortable with something, we talked about different opportunities across a variety of careers. Definitely consider other career pathways too. I think that's something that's important to consider because oftentimes we can be really passionate about certain levels of work, but we may not agree, or we may be passionate in a different way than folks. So just consider opportunities that align with your values. And so we can share this slide deck too, so you have a variety of those resources of other industries. But there are lots of opportunities to put or to use your public service skills for good.
Other questions? I'll take a look at the chat. All right, see a question from Sarah. I'm graduating in December. Can I go ahead and apply to positions for recent grads? Yes, you can actually. If you want to preemptively start putting in applications, because even still, the federal hiring timeline is still long. So by the time they actually take a look at your application, you will probably get to that point where you're nearing graduation. So I would definitely recommend that. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I can jump and answer the next one. Is there any expectation about when the hiring freeze might end? That's a great question. And honestly, I don't think anyone really knows when some of the stuff might end. And so, and if we weren't in the midst of a government shutdown and I was talking about federal jobs, I would encourage those applying to be patient because the process can take a while. And similarly, I think I recommend being patient again. So emphasizing some of those alternative career paths. Certainly keep an eye out for what's important, or those federal jobs if that's important to you. But if you are looking for something more in the immediate term, you might consider a stepping stone to another opportunity before going to government later. You can really customize your career path, and there's opportunities to try different things throughout your career. So definitely feel encouraged that if the federal job that you want isn't open or isn't available at this time, there might be an opportunity elsewhere that could still set you up for that job later. So just think about those things, because right now it's really hard to say when those things might shift, and it has been largely the state of this year in terms of hiring freeze. But as stuff opens up, we'll of course share with the network, and as we hear from folks, we'll provide updates as necessary to get out to you all who are searching for opportunities. But just wanted to add that continuing to navigate with patience and flexibility, I think, is key with the public sector, especially in times right now when there's a lot that we can't control as job seekers.
All right, there's another question. Does public service loan forgiveness apply to public sector jobs that support the public sector? Traditionally, that program does. However, I do want to caution, I guess, a reliance on this program because there might be changes coming. So again, just think very carefully about the types of roles that you take. Public service is great no matter what flavor you're involved in, but always double check that the public service loan forgiveness program is still live and operational, just because things could change very quickly. And then the next question is it common for hiring managers to offer positions to graduate students before they graduate? Logan?
Yeah, happy to take that one. In terms of positions, so primarily with federal, state, and local jobs, there's often more of a rigid system and way to apply to positions that and certain requirements that must be fulfilled. But if, for example, if you're working in the private sector or a nonprofit organization, it's possible that if you have a graduate internship or a graduate fellowship, that it could turn into full-time employment. That's not uncommon. My general advice would be if that you're in an organization or that's something you're interested in as you're in your internship, fellowship, graduate opportunity, research opportunity, whatever that might be, start having those conversations early. Kindly express that interest that you're interested in working with the organization full time. Again, for government jobs, it looks a little bit different, and most of the time, they're going to tell you to apply just like everybody else. However, it doesn't hurt to make your interest known, but in the private sector, nonprofits, higher ed, sometimes there's more flexibility, and definitely make your interest known. So then this way, your manager, your colleagues, or whoever, a mentor, can support you in your next steps.
Any final questions? I know we're coming up on the hour. So as you might think of that final question, I'm also going to put a link to the partnerships LinkedIn page. We are very active in posting updates, especially reposting posts from our CEO, Max Steyer. So if you want to stay connected with us, feel free. But last call for questions. All right, I think that's it. Suzanne, do you want me to turn it back to you?
Sure. Yeah. Everyone, please join me in thanking Stephanie and Logan for today's presentation. It was really chock full of helpful resources and information. We're grateful for you for being here. And if you want to continue the conversation with us, this is part of the DC Virtual Trek. We have other events, and I was just thinking one of the events we have is with the Government Accountability Office, GAO, which they are a federal agency that is hiring. So one of our partner schools is bringing them on board to talk. And then we have a panel of government affairs professionals. We're going to also talk with some interns about their experience interning, living, and working in DC. And then finally, we have an international development discussion, sort of post-USAID, which is will be at a slightly different date than what we have listed here, but we're kind of waiting for that. So just sign up and then you'll get notified. Thanks again, everybody. We hope to see you the rest of the month. And thanks again to the partnership. Have a great rest of your day, everyone.